to like once even knowing that, it's hard to put it to action. So,
oh, absolutely. But good for you. I'm inspired.
I'm practicing. I'm trying to get a little.
You're trying to practice.
Yeah.
Practice what you preach.
Okay. Well, I'll see you.
Bye, Jared.
Pray for me. I'm afraid that I am about to lose it all. Pray for me. I don't need gravity for tears to fall. Would you can keep your fancy words and color lines. Nothing super spiritual, not this time. Just pray for me. Helping me to grow. Pray for me. I already know. Love me. approval, will you let me stay and pray for me? Pray for me. 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 Our Father who art in heaven, holy is your name. Your kingdom come on earth, the same as in heaven. Give us this our daily bread. Forgive us. Lord, lead us not into sin, but deliver us from wrong. For your kingdom, power, the glory forever. Pray for me. Pray for me. It's judgment. I'm not judged. Not judged. Not judged. Not judged. Yes, you are listening to KBF 88.3 FM, where we are live with the Health Corner. Can you believe it? You're hearing my voice, but it's the Health Corner right here. And we are excited about the conversation today that is rooted in Kirk Franklin singing this song, Pray for Me. But before I get started with that, I got a whole bunch I need to tell you. First of all, I need to tell you how much we appreciate you. I need to tell you how grateful we are for you every single time you show up. Here I am on the third Thursday morning all by myself, and yet you have shown up, and for that we are grateful. Want to let you know that it is because of your presence in this space. It's because of all of the different ways that you contribute to this space. Many of you contribute financially, that is true. Many more of you will contribute financially. We believe that to be true as well. But you also contribute in so many other ways. Just how you reach out to us, how you show up in community, how you talk to us when you come to the radio station because you just want to see. You done heard about it and you just want to see, like, all of the different ways that you show up to help guide these conversations, especially when you show up by dialing 501-433-0088. That is the number in the studio, 501-433-0088. That is the number to the studio. The phone will ring right here and we will have you, your voice projected across 100,000 watts of local community radio and all across the world, because this is a global streaming platform. And if you call in to 501-372-6119 right now, you'll hear your girl Lola. You know who that is. On Tuesdays from 10 to 12, your girl Lola is on the air with all the jazz that you can stand and some of it that you even can't. My mama Tuesday was like, is she still playing this music? Yes. She plays for 2 hours straight, but she's also volunteering her time here on Thursdays. So if you want to hear your girl Lola, 372-6119, area code 501, just make up a question. Or you don't even have to have a question. Just let her answer the phone so that you can hear her talk to you, and you can know what it means. She can give you more information on how to just volunteer at the station, because volunteerism is how we stay alive right here at KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. So thank you so much for your presence. Yes, this is the Health Corner, and usually you will hear the voices of Tony and his wife, the Dr. Kendra Orr Roberts, and you will also hear from Mrs. Marcina McKinley, who is licensed as a social worker. I can't remember all of the letters behind her name, but there are some. Usually you hear them leading the conversation, guiding us into more discussion and dialogue about what it means to be careful and pay attention to our mental health, particularly as it relates to Black folks. But everybody should be concerned about their brain health. And so that's generally the conversation. But Tony is in Brazil, and he told Elle told me this. I'm telling you what somebody told me. I'm not telling you what I know. I'm telling you what somebody told me. But Tuesday, Elle now comes on before me, and he told me that Tony said to him, I've got 2 weeks in Brazil. The first week is work, but the second week is pleasure. So we should not be surprised that his wife is with him in Brazil, and they are enjoying this week. I think that they return on Saturday. Don't quote me on that. I'm not really sure. But that's where they are, just enjoying being away, being out of the country, being together, thinking about their own mental health and how to create that balance that all of us need. And then Mrs. McKinley is busy right now doing professional stuff. She's a professional, y'all. So she got professional work to do. So they were unable to be here on this morning. And I told them, no worries, I got you. I got you. So here you are with the health corner. And I will be guiding the conversation. Make sure y'all pay attention. Make sure y'all take some notes. Make sure y'all ask some questions so y'all can call back next month on the third Thursday and tell them everything I did wrong. That's all right with me, because I am sitting in doing the very best that I can. And I do hope that you will enjoy this show that is rooted, sourced in the song Pray For Me from Kirk Franklin. Many of us know him as a gospel music icon. Many of us don't know him at all. And so we'll be talking about him. I'll be telling a little bit of his story to help us talk about the importance of paying attention to and being, gaining a better understanding of brain health. I want to make a couple of announcements. The first announcement I want to make is not really an announcement. It's a call to action for those of us in community. I ain't heard from Hotep, y'all. I need to know about Kenyon Lowe Sr., who the last time I heard was in the hospital because he had an infection that was set up in his leg. Mac Ezekiel reached out to him and has not heard back. I have reached out and have not heard back. So anybody, if you have any information on Hotep, please, please, please call in and let us know. We are family here in this space, and I know we family because we don't always get along. Families are inherently dysfunctional, and so when I talk about us being family, I'm reminded that regardless of our perspectives, regardless of our thought processes, regardless of the way we choose to live our lives, we still are connected in that family unit of being human together. And when one of us is hurting, all of us should be hurting. That's why we talk about my freedom, my liberation is tied to yours, because if I ain't free, you ain't free. And so we are in this together. So if anybody knows about Kenyon Lowe Sr., I call him Hotep. I give everybody a nickname. I got that from my mom. I just realized that now that she's living with me. I got that from her. She gave everybody a nickname. Everybody who anyway, so she does give them a nickname. So I want to make sure that I say that. I also want to call forth Rick into this space. Those of you who listen on Tuesdays, many times you will hear Rick call in and talk about whatever the issues are, talk about his own issues. He will share his own story. He has no problem being absolutely transparent and in many cases vulnerable. If you are his friend on Facebook, then you know that he is going through a time right now. And all of it is on his Facebook page. You can go to Patrick Pilgrim and you will see it for yourself. And during the time, Rick is unable to listen to us, and I am trying to come alongside him to help him in any way that I can. But the fact of the matter is, there are some things that I just don't understand. And this is what we try to get people to think about and understand when we are in relationship one with each other. I need other people in my life who have different lived experiences to help round out my own experience. There are roads that I have not traveled. There are streets that are unknown to me. There are avenues that I don't even know where they are located for me to even turn. There are alleyways behind buildings and houses and spaces that I will overlook because I have no reason to travel in that direction. And so my life has been, has manifested, has unfolded in a way that there are certain things that have not happened to me. There are certain experiences that I have not had. And so I cannot always understand what another person is going through, but I still want to help. And in order to help, I need somebody else to help me understand. If you know what it's like, if you've been there, if you have knowledge, if you have information, help me understand. And so those of you who are familiar with Rick's situation, help me understand a little better so that I can help as much as possible get him to the destination that he has carved out for himself. I'm not at all trying to tell him how to live his life, but whatever his decisions are, I just want to come. I want to be right by your side. I want to be your constant companion. I want to be the one who you can call on and know that I'll be right there to help. And if I can't help, I'm gonna try to find somebody who can help. We're gonna make it happen. So y'all, if you know anything about Rick, you can help me understand better what's going on. Then that would be good, so that we can continue to rock and roll like my mama rock. We rocking and rolling today, so that we can continue to move together as a collective of folks who love each other simply because we are human, for no other reason. And that's one of the things that Kirk Franklin asks in his song "Pray for Me." Will you love me if I'm dirty and I've lost my way? Will you take me as I am? Will you not try to fix me? Will you not try to plead the blood of Jesus over me? Will you just allow me to be who I am, even as I go through believing that there is a God, but knowing that I need a different kind of help. I need a different kind of support. Are you willing to take me as I am? That is one of the questions. And the answer for me is yes. However you are, however you show up, I'm willing to do that. And I believe that the answer is yes for many of us. So we're going to continue to talk about that. I do want to announce that Domino's in the Park is happening tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. Woo, woo. Mm-hmm. Woo, woo. We have been having a time at Domino's in the Park. We've got a new player. Her name is DA, a new player that has been showing up on Fridays. Not just showing up, but showing out. I was not there the first couple of times that she came, and Tony said that she whooping up on everybody. Tony and Leonard, who profess to be experts, right, in the game. And DA has shown up and said, whoa, whoa, whoa. You're not the only one who knows how to lay these bows, to slap these bows, slam these bows, whatever the language is. And so DA has been coming, and they had the audacity last week to say, Denise, we gonna let you win. I was like, hold up. Only nobody let me do nothing. And of course I won that last game. And so we are excited to make sure that you know the invitation is extended to you. You can be like Phyllis Brown and show up just to be in the number. Rarely does Phyllis Brown play, but she will be in the number. She'll be telling stories. Sometimes she's playing music. Sometimes she's got a treat. We don't know what's going to happen when people show up. So we do want to make sure that you know you are invited to join us for Domino's in the Park at 5 p.m. right here on 21st Street, a little bit down from the radio station as you are headed east. If you're headed east, it's on the right-hand side. We are right there, and we'll be there at least until 7 o'clock, sometimes beyond. My mama, we're going to have her event on next Saturday as well. I'm not going to cancel it, even though she has a procedure on Tuesday. I'm not going to cancel it, but I want to, before we get into what's talking about the Health Corner, let me ask you this. On Thursdays, when Tony is here, his show is called The Workplace. And so we're trying to do a really good job of making sure that we are rooting the conversation in the workplace. So at first I was thinking about it being the workplace, and I wanted to ask this question. I said, oh, I forgot, it's the Health Corner. But I do want to ask this. Those of you who are working in the field of healthcare, I also need some understanding around what's happening with my mother's prescription. So she has insurance. but there is what they call a coverage gap. So she has reached the limits that they will allow her under the coverage, the insurance coverage that she has. She's reached the limit of how many prescriptions she can have filled, but the end of the year has not yet arrived. So from now until the end of the year, she's in what's called a coverage gap. So all of her insurance benefits will re-up in January, no problem. But until then, the coverage gap says that she has to pay 25% of the cost of the medicine in order to get it from the pharmacy. So one of her medications a couple of months ago was only $47. Last month it was $194 because she's in the coverage gap. And so we talked, so we were like, okay, we got to figure out what to do. And so I inquired about that same medication this month, and now it's $249. So for those of you who are in the healthcare field, help me understand. I get it. I get that there's a coverage gap. I mean, I don't get why, and that's a whole nother question. I don't get why, but I understand that there's a gap in coverage until the end of the year. I understand that means she has to pay 25% of the price. I understand that. And I understand that last month, that price that the 25% she had to pay was $193, $194. And now the same medication in the same coverage gap is $249. That's the part I need you to help me understand. The other thing I need you to help me understand is, what are you all doing? Those of you who are working in the healthcare field, those of you who are working as pharmacy techs, those of you who are working as pharmacists, those of you who are working as pharmaceutical reps, those of you who are in this space, what are you doing to advocate and agitate and irritate, to get into good trouble around waging a war against how we handle how we handle healthcare, yes, but in this particular case, prescription medication, because it's not like my mama is electing to have any of these. It's not that she has this body where she's elected to have these procedures that cause her to need this medication. Like, she has to have her medication to live. So we're talking about high blood pressure, we're talking about diabetes, we're talking about kidney failure, we're talking about heart failure. That's what we're talking about. So this is not something she can control. This is not something you can say, oh, well, just stop taking the medicine. Just don't worry about it. There's no opting out of this. And so what are you doing to fight this for us, for those of us who are not in that space? Because this is your context. This is your ministry. This is where God has called you to be a voice for those of us who need activism in this space. What are you doing? Tell us what you're doing. Call in, let us know, because I want to help. I want to get in on the fight. Whatever I can do to help you fight for us, that's what I want to do. So 501-433-0088. Phone lines are open at 501-433-0088. This is the Health Corner, and we are talking about the importance of paying attention to our brain health so that we can be as mentally healthy as possible, and so that we can do the work of eradicating the stigma and the discrimination that people who are neurodivergent, whose chemicals within their brains are cause them to think in different ways, cause them to manifest in different ways, cause them to live a different kind of life, how we can make sure that we are including them in our family of humans the same way we include everybody else. So we want to make sure that we are doing all of the work, fighting against the systems that plague us, fighting against the systems that discriminate against us, fighting against the systems that stigmatize us, like fighting against all those systems while educating and informing us on how to live our best lives with the brains that we have. Not the brain somebody said we ought to have, not the brain somebody is condemning us for having, but the brains that we have. How do we remember to declare them good? We were created good, by good, for good. We are good. How do we make sure that we are living into that goodness and not being a stumbling block for other people to live into theirs? And so I was hoping that Osiris Bali would be able to come on the show today, because I was scrolling through my notifications on Facebook and saw a post that he made about Father's Day. It's a YouTube story written and directed, produced. I don't know who all the people are behind the scene, but the star of it is Kirk Franklin. And Kirk Franklin is about to release an album, a new album. And some of the comments on the feed are that this is a great way to release an album, to garner support for his album. And that may be what he's doing. I'm not sure. It reminds me of what I consider to be a brilliant business move by Jay-Z and Beyonce. I don't know if you remember, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but there was a time when Beyonce used her musical expressions to accuse her husband of having an affair on her, of having an extramarital affair. And she used the album, it's Lemonade. She used this album to what some people call air their dirty laundry, but I don't call it that at all. I call it allowing us to see into the humanity of their lives, right? To help us see that all of these ideas about living a perfect life, Christianity as we practice it, as we have been indoctrinated to practice it in the Western world, has created this false idea that we can be perfect. Yeah, we say things like, well, Jesus is the only one who's perfect, but what we do is we're striving to be like him. So we want to get as close to perfection as possible. So it's possible for us not to be sinners. It's possible for us not to live in this wayward way. It's possible for us to be as close as we can to righteousness and holiness and sacredness. And so many of us are jumping through all kinds of hoops, and we are losing our balance. We are no longer able to even recognize our humanity, let alone maintain it, because we are trying to be supernatural, because that's the way the church is programming us to be. And so I don't think that they were airing their dirty laundry. I think that they were being human, and being human in a very public way, because they live public lives. And so Jay-Z never responded. Not once did he go on to the Oprah Winfrey Show or the what's Kevin Hart's show? Heart to Heart. Not once did he go on Heart to Heart. Not once did he show up on the Breakfast Club. Not once did he do any of these things. He waited and answered her in his album, 444. And so I thought it was a brilliant business strategy. We were waiting with bated breath to hear what he had to say in response to Beyonce's accusations. And there his answer is in his song, in that album. And so I think that there is an argument that can be made that perhaps that is what Kirk Franklin is doing. He's taking a page out of their book, and he's using this story, Father's Day, to garner the support that he needs to propel his album to the status that he wants on the Billboard charts, because he has a history of that, a musical history of being a Grammy Award winning singer, gospel artist, choir director, producer, all of those things. And so that may be true. For me, I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on the fact that as you watch this video, and honestly, I thought it was going to be like an hour, like 2 hours. I got myself together, because I am just not one who watches TV like that. As a matter of fact, I talked to you about listening to crime shows and listening to cooking shows, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm listening. I'm not watching them. They're on in my ear in the background, and it helps me to do the work that's in front of me. So I'm listening. So this time I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch this. I want to see, because I want to be involved in this conversation, because that's what Osiris was called. Like, who wants to talk about this? Somebody talk to me about this. So I said, let me pay attention. So I got myself together thinking that I was going to have to watch this for an hour or 2 hours. And that's not the case. I think it's only 35 minutes and 41 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not very long at all. And so I want to focus on not even really the story that he's telling, but I do need to tell you that the reason that he's going to name the album, I'm pretty sure that's what he said. The album is also going to be named Father's Day, just like the name of this YouTube video is called Father's Day, because Kirk Franklin in the video finds his father. He experiences Father's Day on many levels, on more than one level. Let me just say that, on more than one level. The level of finding his father, the level of recognizing his own fatherhood, like how are you showing up as father? So this is playing itself out in the video that we are able to watch. And so that's what the story is about, is him coming to terms with now knowing who the father. Oh, also there's a segment where he has to make amends for the way he treated the man he thought was his father. He treated him badly because he hated the man. These are his words, not mine. He hated this man, and he treated the man according to his hatred. But when he was anonymously called and informed that the man that he thought was his father was dying of cancer, he goes to be reconciled with this man before he dies. And he has conversation with the man and still thinking all this time that this is his father, and turns out that it's not. So so Father's Day is showing up with him learning about his new father, with him making amends with the man he thought was his father, with him having to own and be accountable for the way that he has shown up for father for his own first child. Like all of this is happening in this video. So I'm not saying watch it. I'm not. I actually am not. I'm not. I'm not trying to drive you towards the video. What I want to talk about is the fact that as he tells his story about knowing that he was adopted and being able to know and see and visit with his mother on a regular basis, and what it means to then have her walk away from him and still leave him with the one who's raising him, the Gertrude that has to collect aluminum cans in order to get him piano lessons. As he tells this story, one cannot help but recognize all of the trauma that is attached to the story. The trauma of, first of all, being adopted. When you find out that you are adopted, there are several of us who go through life adopted and we never learn. And because we never learn, there is trauma that we are not introduced to, and that can be considered a good thing or a bad thing. It depends on your perspective, and I'd love to hear what your perspective is on this. But for those of you who never learn it, then you never wonder. You never begin to have thoughts about who it is that gave birth to you. You never have thoughts about what do they look like? How do they act? Do I look like them? Do I have this same personality? Do I have some of their mannerisms? Do I behave in ways that they do? You never begin to have those thoughts. And so you don't begin to wonder about your place in the world and what it would be like to meet them. You don't have to think about those things. So there's a certain trauma attached to that. And then people begin to wonder, why did they give me up for adoption? Why wasn't I good enough? Why didn't they love me? Or maybe what were they going through? What was the trauma in their own lives that caused them to make this decision? Or were they forced to give me up because maybe they had me at a young age, and going back to this religion that declares that we are sinners if we have sex outside of wedlock, and how dare we get pregnant. And during my mother's generation, especially if a child got pregnant, they would try to hide it in so many ways. The child would have to be shipped off to another place to have the child and then come back without the baby, and then people pretend like she was never pregnant. There were some instances where the grandparents would adopt the baby and raise the baby up alongside the mother as if it's the mother's brother or sister. And so then the child, when the child finally finds out, they're like, wait a minute, you're not my mama, you're my sister, like what? And so there's trauma around that. Or in my own family, we have a history of finding out that you are adopted because somebody got mad at their sibling. They got mad and told your secret, and not understanding how that affects the child's life forever and ever and always. So all of this trauma just from the first statement that he makes in the movie, that I was adopted. And so he knows who his mother is, who gave him up for adoption, and actually has some kind of estranged relationship with her. So having to think about trauma. And then because he is a Black man, thinking about trauma in that context. So when you live in a world, so those of us who are Black, who the world has identified as Black, who the world has labeled as Black, those of you who would rather use the term African American, I honor your use of that word. I do not use that word, but I want you to know that I would not tell you not to use that word. And if you asked me to identify you in that way, I absolutely would identify you in that way. When I say Black, I say it on purpose, because for me, the Black experience is inextricably linked to the system of enslavement in America. And you cannot, I will not allow you to erase that history, to erase that fact, to pretend like that was not evil, to pretend like there was some benefit to it, to pretend like it was necessary. I'm not going to allow you to do it. So I constantly remind folks that you call me Black, and this is what it means to be Black in America. But I'm using the term as expansively as I can, so to include all members of the African diaspora. So those of you who say that you are African American, that absolutely includes you too. So when we are thinking about what it means to be Black in this world where you're born with strikes against you. You're born with the strike of your skin color, your melanin. You're born with that one strike. And then you are born with the strike against your gender. So if you are male and Black, that is a strike. If you are female and woman and Black, that is another strike. So you're born, regardless of gender, you are born with 2 strikes against you. And then if you dare to have the type of personality that causes you, allows you, if you dare to carry those genes that manifest in a way that you resist the notions of what the world tells you you ought to be, then that's 3 strikes against you already. And so you haven't even begun to live life according to your own plan, according to your own design, because you're so busy fighting all of what the world tells you. And so to already have all of this working against you, and then to learn that you are adopted, there's just trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma. And then we are talking about in the Black community. So what do you do with all of that, right? What do you do with all of that trauma? And what many of us have been taught to do with all of that trauma is to pray about it. There was a movie, I watched it. Was it called Prayer Closet? T.D. Jakes' daughter starred in the film. I cannot. Yeah, once upon a time, I was so good with all of these names because I was so entrenched into my own Christianity that I was keeping up with all of that. I can't think. But I want to say it was called Prayer Closet, and there was this room in this person's house where they would go, like you would actually go and sit. There was a place for you to sit inside of this room, and you could communicate with God. Danny asked us on Sunday, "What is prayer?" And I offered it. Anytime a preacher asks a question and I know the answer, I say it right off the bat, so we don't have to spend a whole lot of time trying to figure out who in the room knows the answer. Keep on with the sermon. Let's keep going. And we don't want anybody to feel judged because you don't know the answer. So I'm just going to give you the answer so you can keep going. So he said, "What is prayer?" Communication with God. That's what it is. And then Danny asked, "So you don't have to have any special words?" No. This is me answering. "You don't have to have any special words?" No. "You don't have to have any poetic language?" No. "You don't have to have a certain posture?" No. "You don't have," no. All the stuff that we have said about what you got to do to pray. No, none of that. And so it's the same thing that I want to say about this idea that what do you do with your trauma? You take it to Jesus. No. You put it in go to the prayer closet. No, that's not what you do with it. That may be a part of how you handle it. That may be one of the tools or a couple of the tools in your toolbox. I definitely would not suggest you be deprived of that. But that is not how you handle it. Like, that's not the answer. That's not the end all be all to the conversation around what do I do? How do I live? How do I move the trauma out of my body? Because that's what therapy, that's what paying attention to your mental health, that's what prioritizing your brain health allows you to do. It gives you the tactics and the strategies that you need to move it out of your body. Because if you don't move it out of your body, what it does is it sets up toxicity. And so you are living with toxic stress. And if you are already what the world considers to be Black, who the world calls Black, you're already living under toxic stress. Racism, sexism, classism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, fat phobia, ageism. All of these systems of oppression that we live under already set us up to live under toxic stress. But the toxic stress is elevated in the bodies, the levels are elevated in the bodies of people who are deemed Black by the world. And so you are already living under stress. And so when we are not allowed to give proper attention to our mental health, and that's another layer of stress that keeps us from living, if we're going to stay in this context of religion, the abundant life that was promised to us. In John 10, chapter 10, the devil comes to kill and to steal and to destroy, but I have come, and these are the words that have been put into the mouth of Jesus by the ones that we say wrote this book, that Jesus would then respond, but I have come that you may have life and you will have it more abundant. You will be able to live it to the full. You will be able to live it out loud, live it in color. It can be all that you want it to be if you allow yourself to be rid of all that comes to steal your joy, and not being allowed to pay attention to your mental health, to your brain health, steals your joy. And it is by design. Especially when we think about religion, it is by design that I say to you, oh, no, don't worry about your mental health, take it to Jesus, because the way we have been indoctrinated to practice religion, Jesus never shows up for you to help you heal it in the way that it needs to be healed, so that it is moved out of your body. We allow people to think that we are better. We allow people to feel like we are better. It's all about smoke and mirrors. It's all about perceptions. It's all about these realities that we concoct that really are not true. They are rooted in some world that does not really exist. It's a world that we can claim if we are spiritual, if we are holy, but it's not a world that we can make manifest in our everyday lives, because we are living the human experience and we are surrounded by humanity, and the systems that plague us are created by human hands. And so we've got to be able to deal with what is the reality of the human experience, which says that no, when there are different ways that our brain is being shaped and molded, then we've got to use human hands and human tools and human expertise in order to understand it. Now, I'm not going to say that the people who have the expertise are not gifted and graced by God. Like, that's fine. I can go along with that. I can absolutely have that conversation. But the tools that they have at their disposal with their hands to help us, and I'm not necessarily talking about medication, even though that could be considered one tool. We can be talking about talk therapy. We could be talking about group therapy. We could be talking about couples therapy. We can talk about all kinds of ways that therapy can be used as a tool to help us move this trauma out of our bodies. But we've got to be able to have the conversation that says, first of all, I am traumatized. I am traumatized first, just because I'm Black, I'm traumatized. Because of sexism, I am traumatized. And then because of, in this particular situation, whatever my familial relationship is, Kirk Franklin happens to be born into a family where he was adopted. I was born into a family where there was family violence. There's domestic violence. Now, I never saw, because we usually, when we say domestic violence, a lot of us think about that in terms of domestic violence happening between our daddy and our mama, the parents that we have, whether they're married or not, if they live in the house. We think about violence that way. But we're using different language now, because there is such a thing as intimate partner violence. So I'm not married to you. We are in relationship with each other as partners. As we've said, we've made some kind of commitment to each other, and then there's violence between us. But domestic violence for me includes violence in the household. Like, so those of us who were children who were abused. And it's hard for us, especially as Black folks, to even acknowledge that we were abused, because we have been taught to believe, we have been programmed and conditioned to believe that the abuse that we suffered, the violent abuse that we suffered at the hands of our parents or our aunts or whoever was in the home with us, caring for us, this structure, this family structure, which could have two families in the household. It could be your grandmama, it could be your auntie, whoever it is. We've been conditioned to believe that it was for our good. And not only have we been conditioned to believe that it was for our good, we rooted in the Bible. God says it was for your good. So those of us who were beat we were whipped with extension cords. Those of us who were burned with irons and cigarette butts and all of these things, because this was a way for our behavior to be modified so that we could comply with the laws of this land that already have these strikes against us, because we are Black and male and Black and female. These strikes that we have, I don't want you to get another strike out there, so I'm gonna fix you. I'm gonna break you. I'm gonna break your spirit. I'm gonna change the way that you are, so that you can be better, so that you can be holier, so that you can be one who is acceptable to the world when you walk out of this door. So we've been convinced, we've been fully persuaded that it is okay that our parents beat us the way that they did. And so for us, it is difficult to even say that we are abused. That's the first step, being able to say, hey, there's trauma attached to this violence that was prevalent in our home. There's even more trauma for you to say God said it was good. And then if we can take that step to say, yes, we were abused, can we stop saying, but it was for our own good? Can we stop owning it? Can we stop condoning it? Can we stop making excuses for it? Can we stop forgiving it? And again, that's difficult for many of us to do because the art of forgiveness is something that we have also been conditioned and programmed and indoctrinated to believe that we must do in order to see this God that's waiting for us on this other side, somewhere, wherever that exists in this place that we call heaven. So all of this religion that is rooted and grounded in Black in America, because this is not what we practice in Africa, but what we believe and what we have been taught to believe in Western Christianity. This is all that we are carrying, and all of it is traumatizing. If we would but stop and think about it, what kind of God would say to you that just because of who you are, like I'm gonna create you so that you can be birthed into a world where just by showing up in that world, you are automatically despised. And then I'm gonna say, don't worry about it, because Jesus was despised and rejected too. So the more you are despised, the better you are, because that means Jesus is on your side. What kind of trauma does that say to a child? Don't worry about how much people hate you. Just say, thank you, Jesus, because I'm being hated. Thank you, Jesus, that I'm being bullied. Thank you, Jesus, that I'm being whooped to death. Thank you, Jesus, that I'm being treated like I'm not human. Thank you, Jesus. What kind of trauma do we carry because of that? And so being able to say, yes, I am traumatized is one thing. Being able to say, and it was not for my good, is another step along the journey towards being better able to care for our mental health and our brain health. And it's another step if we can do what Kirk Franklin does in this song. He says, pray for me. Very first line, he says, pray for me, because I'm afraid that I'm about to lose it all. Now, depending on your perspective, one person might say, well, what you're talking about is you're afraid that you're about to lose your status as this gospel music icon. You're afraid that you're about to lose the house that you live in, however much it costs, however big it is. The thought did flash through my mind as I was watching the video, because I am a piano player. I'm a pianist. And so when I saw the piano in his house, I was like, oh my goodness, I am waiting for the day that I can have a baby grand piano in my home. And so it made me look around the room. I was like, what else is in here? And then I was like, whoa, let me focus. I don't want to start looking around, looking to see what he got in his house. But I noticed the piano. I noticed that his home is spacious. I noticed that his father's home is spacious. I noticed that his first son's, Carrion's, home is spacious. And it made me think about those people who live in what folks call the projects, because it was a project, like, right? Oh my goodness, the way the world uses these words, like Black people, America is an experiment in and of itself, but how to integrate Black people into the world post the Civil War. Like, how do we, like, we're gonna have these projects, like what do we do? How do they live? Let's look at them under a microscope. How can we do that? Let's create these environments where they are living on top of each other, and let's just see what happens. And we know the trauma that we may not know, but we need to talk about the trauma that is related to that. That is not the topic for today, but that is something that we need to talk about. And so he says, pray for me. I'm afraid that I'm about to lose it all. So one could think that that's what he's talking about, but it's not. From what I gather from reading and researching and watching and listening and trying to learn more, I'm afraid that I'm about to lose it all. I'm afraid that I'm about to lose the faculties, my mental faculties. I'm afraid that I'm about to go into a space where I no longer feel that I have a good grip, a good grasp on my mental ability, my ability to think effectively, my ability to make the very best decisions, my ability to navigate this world like one who understands how to live and move and breathe according to the laws of humanity. Like, how do I interact with folks in a way that does not scare them in terms of what's coming out of my mouth, in a way that does not scare them in terms of the way I am behaving on my own. So we see people who are talking to themselves. We see people who are yelling at themselves. We see people who are scratching at themselves. We see people who are are not clothed according to the what the climate is, right? Like they seem to be living outside of living in an external existence to what it is that we are living. Those of us who think that we got it right. So he's like, I'm about to lose it, y'all. The way I'm thinking about things, the way and then he says, pray for me. I don't need gravity for tears to fall. I don't need anything to help me. These tears. Have you ever cried like that? Where if somebody were not looking at you in your face, if they were looking at you from behind, or if they were looking at you from their periphery, they would not even be able to tell that you are crying because the tears are simply rolling down your face. You're not racked with sobs. You're not making any noise. You may not even be sniffling, but the tears are consistently rolling down your face because you are in whatever turmoil you're going through. He said, I don't need gravity for tears to fall. And then he says, you can keep your fancy word and your colored lines. And I think about that a lot as one who has pastored people. And the many times that I hear the cliches that we use when someone is grieving. They can be grieving for any number of things. They could be grieving the loss of a parent, grieving the loss of a child, grieving the loss of a spouse, grieving the loss of a relationship through divorce. They could be grieving the loss of employment from a job. Like they could be grieving in all these different kinds of ways. And we think that it's important for us to try to come up with something cutesy to say that God would like, well, God, everything happens for a reason. Or somebody dies and you say, well, God needed to pluck this flower for God, for his. In this case, we would absolutely call God his flower garden. Like we say these things as if they are supposed to help us, and they absolutely are not helpful at all. In many cases, we ought to take a page from the book of Job and just come alongside somebody and sit and allow the tears to fall just like their tears are falling. We just want to sit and hurt with you. We just want to sit and be sad with you. We want to sit and wonder with you. We want to sit and try to empathize with the trauma with you. I just want to be with you in this moment. That's what we're trying to do with Hotep. That's what we're trying to do with Rick. That's what we're trying to do with each other. How do I come alongside and just be with you on the journey, wherever the journey leads, even if it leads us through times of grieving and sorrow and sadness? He said, I don't want no fancy words. I don't want no super spiritual stuff. I want you to think about praying for me in a different way, a way that allows my brain health to be front and center. My brain health, whatever state that I am in, don't try to fix me. Don't try to save me. Don't try to deliver me. Don't try to say I ain't right. Don't judge me. Can you just let me be in your presence? Because if we believe in the spiritual, and if we believe that all of it's working together, mind, body, spirit, and soul, if we believe that that is how we are made up as humans, if that is the case, the spirit is already at work. You ain't brought the spirit with you. I don't need you to pray the spirit in my presence. It's already present among us. And then we do have some helpful verses. The verse that is helpful that says, where two or three are gathered. And I added this part, touching and agreeing. I added that part. Where two or three are gathered, we can already feel it. And it is true that I don't even need you around me to feel it. So when I show up, when I make my presence known, I don't need you to now call forth the angels. We don't have to do that. We can just be with each other. And if I choose that this is a place safe enough for me to share my trauma, because we talk about this all the time, I create safe spaces for folks. I know in the work that I do, we spend a whole segment at the beginning of every workshop or retreat or what do we call it, symposium or convocation, whatever it is. We spend a whole segment at the beginning creating these touchstones so that we can feel safer in this space. So if we choose to believe that this is a space that's safer for me to share my trauma, can I trust that when I share it, you won't go Jesus on me? Is what Kirk Franklin is asking in this song. Pray for me. Can you not be all spiritual today? Can I just be? Can I share with you what's going on and you not try to fix it in Jesus' name? Can I share with you and you find out that I'm not superhuman? and you find out that I am actually just a regular old plain human, will you not judge me if you learn that I may have cussed my son out because he got on my nerve, because he took me there? Will it be okay with you if you find out that maybe I had some addictions that you don't think? Is it okay with you if I could just be for just a while? Just be human. And this is what the song says. Can you pray for me in that? Will your theology, will your spirituality, will your understanding of mental health concerns, of brain health, will it allow you to let me be who I am, one who is trying to navigate this experiment that we call life together? Can you just let me be? Can we learn how to pray that way? He does go on in the song to pray the prayer of what we call it, a Father's prayer. I don't know if we call it the disciples' prayer. What we call this prayer, Our Father who art in heaven. We got a name for it. He goes on to pray that in the song, and as I was listening to it, I've heard it so many times, and every time, for me, it's like a hymn. It's like any song, depending on my season in life, depending on what I'm going through, I hear the words in a different way. And what I hear Kirk Franklin calling us to do is, I want us to pray in a different way. I want us to allow ourselves to be in a different way. I want us to pay attention to what people are going through, and to think about their mental health, and to give them space for it, to realize and recognize that our lives have so much trauma attached to it. We need to pay attention to that. And then I see him falling back into what he knows. If you have been indoctrinated into believing something, it is so easy for you to fall back into it because it's the most comfortable place you know. I'll never forget when I myself was in seminary. That was my first entree into rethinking my Christianity. And I began to learn enough in the first semester to know that I needed to let go of a lot of what I was taught as a child. I knew that I needed to. I was learning so much. I was growing so much in so many different ways. God was manifesting in so many different ways. I felt like Kirk Franklin. I'm about to lose it all. I'm about to lose my grip on what I have come to know as comfortable, what I have come to know as foundational. I'm about to lose my grip because it's no longer working. It no longer makes sense anymore. But I don't yet know enough to grab hold to something different. So I'm in this place of suspension, and it feels scary. And so when I get to this place where I know I ought to be, a different place, a new way of being, a new way of thinking, a new way of praying, I get scared, and then I fall back. And I start doing what I used to do. And that's what happens in this song. He's calling us forth out of this way of thinking that has been programmed for us to believe as religion. Not programmed for us to know as God, but to believe as religion. I'm in it and I'm stuck. And now I know I need to do better, but I'm scared, and so I fall back. How do we help each other get to the place where we know we can't keep going in the direction we've been in? We got to go in a new way. And here's a new way. The way that allows us to be, the way that acknowledges our trauma, the way that doesn't relegate us to a prayer closet in order to deal with it, a way that allows us to say it out loud, to come to terms with it, to hold each other accountable for it, the way to come alongside each other and say, I'm your companion through it all. There's a new way. Let's go forth in that new way. And even when we get scared, let's keep moving forward in that new way. Just grab hold tighter and keep moving. Can we pray for each other in that way? That's what Kirk Franklin asks us to do. What will be your response? Hit me up and let me know. I'm at 228-236-7440. Or when we are on the station, you can call in at 501-433-0088. You have been listening to the Health Corner by the Reverend Doctor. You can just call me Denise. Everybody should be back on next week. Monday, Tony and Neil with Down with Debt. On Tuesday, Denise and Tony with Community Voices. On Thursday, Tony and Denise with The Workplace, and everybody else that's all in between and around. You got Pat Ward on Wednesday. You got Elle on Tuesday. You got your girl Lola on Tuesday. Everybody, we all in space. Maybe we'll be back in place on next week. You got to tune in and listen to see. You are listening to KABF 88.3 FM, where you are the voice of the people. Don't you dare touch that dial.